This is your daily dose of all things royal. So imagine getting a speeding ticket so massive that it literally alters the global economy. Now imagine that instead of paying it, your own government threatens an international trade war just to bail you out. So if you haven't heard, the European Union has officially handed down a staggering 890 million euro antitrust fine to Google. That's roughly like 1 billion US dollars. And the mainstream media right now is covering it as a boring tech story. But what they don't realize is that this digital war didn't just hit an American tech giant, okay? The absolute best part of this entire geopolitical meltdown isn't the money and it isn't the corporate drama. It's actually the collateral damage. By complete accident, this ruling just ripped the rug out from under Prince Harry's global virtue signaling machine. And you're hearing this here first. While most royal coverage stays stuck in the daily news cycle, this major tech ruling flew completely under the radar and quietly took a sledgehammer to Prince Harry's ultimate passion project. I guarantee Harry himself hasn't even figured it out yet, and I, for one, am entirely here for it. In today's video, I'm going to break down exactly what Google did to get hit with $1 billion penalty, why politicians in Washington are exposing themselves as massive hypocrites by rushing to Google's defense, and finally, how a European tech regulation accidentally saved you from the Royal Echo guilt trip the next time you book a vacation. So why don't you grab a cozy beverage, get settled in, don't forget to hit that like button, and let's get into the absolute chaos of what is called the Digital Markets Act. You definitely want to stick through this one. So to understand how a European tech law managed to completely derail a royal prince, we first have to look at the sheer scale of the corruption that the EU just uncovered. For the last 2 years, the European Union has been enforcing a piece of legislation called the Digital Markets Act, otherwise known as DMA. The DMA is designed to prevent massive tech monopolies, what the EU calls gatekeepers, from completely choking out competition. And on July 23rd, the EU formally declared that Google violated this law in 2 massive, highly illegal ways. The penalty is split into 2 separate fines, totaling that eye-watering 890 million euros. Let's look at the first fine, the 460 million euros for straight-up rigging search results. Think about the last time you searched for a hotel, a flight, or a product to buy. When you hit enter, you expect the most relevant, helpful links to appear at the top, right? But the EU found that Google has been artificially pushing its own services, like Google Flights, Google Hotels, and Google Shopping, to the absolute top of the page using massive widgets, enhanced visuals, and filters. Meanwhile, they intentionally bury competing services like Kayak or independent travel agents further down the page. The European Commission's stance here is incredibly simple. The best products should succeed because they are actually better, not just because the company that owns the search engine forced them to the top of your screen. By monopolizing the top of the search page, Google was starving its competitors of traffic and ensuring that you only stayed inside the Google ecosystem. Now, I think we all know that Google does play favorites and prioritizes who they want to prioritize, but to see the European Commission go after Google and fine this company is somewhat satisfying. Now, looking at the second half of this fine, the 430 million euros, it pertains to the Google Play Store. If you own an Android phone, you download your apps through the Google Play Store. And for years, Google has operated what essentially amounts to a digital mafia tax. Whenever you buy a subscription or an in-app purchase, Google takes a massive cut of that revenue, sometimes up to 30%, kind of what they do to YouTube creators. To survive this tax, app developers often set up their own websites where they sell their subscriptions for much cheaper. But here's the shady catch to this. Google had a strict gag order in place. They instituted anti-steering rules that explicitly blocked app developers from telling you, the consumer, about those cheaper outside options. Developers weren't allowed to email you, put a link in the app, or even mention that a cheaper price existed outside the Play Store. So the EU stepped in and said, absolutely not. European consumers have a right to be told where to find the best deals. The Commission ruled that developers must be allowed to freely steer users to cheaper prices without paying Google a toll for the privilege. So, to summarize, Google got caught rigging the search engine and running a price gag order on the App Store. The EU has given Google exactly 60 days to end both of these practices, or they face daily penalties of up to 5% of their total worldwide turnover. Given the size of Google, that is a financially catastrophic threat. Now, if you've been following U.S. politics and big tech, you might be thinking, wow, Washington must be thrilled. After all, politicians in D.C. have spent the last 5 years hauling big tech CEOs in front of congressional committees. We have watched countless grandstanding politicians roast these tech billionaires on live television. They have screamed about monopolies, they've complained about search engine bias, censorship, and they have campaigned heavily on the promise of breaking up big tech. You would assume they'd be cheering the EU on for finally holding one of these giants accountable, right? Wrong. Instead, they are picking the exact wrong fight and exposing a level of hypocrisy that is almost hard to comprehend right now. Now, this to me is mind-boggling that the moment this fine dropped, U.S. lawmakers rushed to Google's defense. There is a massive coalition of politicians, including over 24 Republicans, who supposedly hate big tech censorship. They immediately urged the president to launch trade investigations against the EU. They are actively now threatening retaliatory tariffs and framing Europe's digital rules as discriminatory against American firms. Just let that sink in for a second. Do you see how quickly Washington will pivot? American politicians love to score cheap political points by criticizing big tech at home. They will fundraise off of it, and they will say how evil Google is. But the absolute second a foreign government actually penalizes these companies for anti-competitive behavior that actually hurts American consumers too, Washington suddenly treats Google like a protected national treasure. So essentially what we're looking at here is crony capitalism at its finest. These politicians are perfectly willing to threaten a massive international trade war simply to protect the exact same monopolistic practices they claim to hate. They're arguing that it is somehow unfair that Europe won't let Google aggressively hide cheaper app prices from consumers. And Google right now is leaning right into all of this political chaos because their executives now are issuing public statements warning that the EU is forcing them to, quote, strip away real-time search features Europeans love. They're basically holding the user experience hostage now, saying, if you regulate us, we will just make the internet worse for everyone. But as annoying as Washington's hypocrisy is, this entire geopolitical standoff has produced one glorious, completely unintended consequence. And it brings me now to my absolute favorite part of this story. So how does this tech crackdown destroy Prince Harry? This is the piece royal commentators are completely missing right now. We have to rewind to 2019. Prince Harry, amidst a storm of media criticism for his lifestyle, decided to launch a massive sustainable travel coalition called Travalyst. The goal was to basically track, grade, and display the carbon footprint of everyday commoners. Now, I've talked about this Travalyst grift in numerous videos. This has always been a masterpiece of elite hypocrisy. You have a literal prince, a man who has notoriously caught massive public backlash for flying around the world on highly polluting private jets, returning to his sprawling mansions, building a coalition to lecture you about the carbon footprint of your economy seat to Florida. To make Harry's global guilt trip work, Travalyst partnered with some of the biggest tech companies in the world, and their crown jewel partner is Google. Together, they built something called the Travel Impact Model, or the TIM. The Travel Impact Model is a highly complex algorithm. It calculates well-to-wake emissions, meaning it tracks the environmental cost of jet fuel from the moment it is extracted from the earth to the moment it burns in the engine. It accounts for the aircraft model, the passenger count, the cargo weight, and even the atmospheric warming impact of the contrails, those white streaks airplanes leave in the sky. So here's where it gets good. Google took this Travalyst data and forcefully integrated it into Google Flights search widget. If you have booked a ticket on Google Flights recently, you've seen it. Right next to the price, there is a bold metric telling you if your flight has higher, typical, or lower emissions, complete with little green leaf badges if you are being a good eco-citizen. Prince Harry and his team recently boasted that this specific emissions data is now forced in front of users across billions of global flight searches.
Today, travel stands at a crossroads. It can be a catalyst for positive change, but also a source of environmental strain. Driving emissions, overwhelming destinations, depleting the natural world it depends on. Travalyst is working to build something different. From tangled, fragmented data to a single source of truth. From hidden impacts to trusted, transparent choices. From siloed efforts to a powerful collective. From small tweaks to accelerating systems change. From travel stuck in the past to travel that unlocks action from travelers, businesses, and communities. From where we are to where we need to be. Travel has the power to drive change. And together, we have the power to change travel for good.
It's brilliant from a propaganda standpoint. You can't avoid it. Google essentially weaponized its search monopoly to force Prince Harry's climate data onto the screens of literally anyone trying to go on a vacation. But remember what the EU just ruled today? The European Commission just declared that Google Flights, that massive widget pushed to the top of the search page, is an illegal monopoly tactic. The EU is demanding that Google stop giving preferential treatment to its own widgets and instead treat third-party sites fairly. Because of this ruling, Google is warning that they are being forced to completely strip away and dismantle those real-time Google Flight widgets in Europe to comply with this law. Do you all see the beautiful irony here? If this is something you didn't know about or connected the dots on, go ahead and hit that like button so this can get out to more people, because I guarantee you nobody is talking about this or connecting those dots. This is why I don't get too serious about the superficial bullshit, because it's distracting us away from things like this. By cracking down on Google's monopoly behavior, the EU has effectively neutered Prince Harry's primary megaphone. Travalyst relied entirely on Google's willingness to aggressively push its own widgets above organic search results. Now that the EU has made that illegal, the royal carbon shaming machine just lost its biggest distribution network. And honestly, good riddance if breaking up big tech means that everyday, hardworking, middle-class citizens, both in the United States and in Europe, can look for a cheap flight or other products that's the most competitive, then that's the way that it should be. Not Google making recommendations because they're pushing some kind of an agenda or, trying to turn a certain profit while allowing scumbags like Prince Harry and Travalyst to be harvesting your data. So this just threw a wrench into all of that data harvesting that Harry has going on there with Travalyst. We never talk about the potential money that Harry is making from just having his name attached to this company and allowing Google to do all the work. Nobody knows the financial model, but I guarantee that Harry is making some good money from this. But nobody talks about that. Everybody wants to pretend that Harry and Meghan are going broke, and that's just simply not true. But it makes for good drama and clickbait, I guess. So where does this leave us? Well, over the next 60 days, the internet in Europe is going to change. App developers are finally going to be able to tell you where you can find cheaper prices. Search results are going to become more competitive, allowing smaller companies to actually stand a chance against this whole massive monopoly. Meanwhile, politicians in Washington will continue to keep throwing their temper tantrums, threatening a global trade war to protect the very monopolies they use to fundraise on the campaign trail. And Prince Harry's Travalyst coalition will have to figure out how to guilt-trip the working class without the crutch of an illegal search engine monopoly. So for now, Travalyst data analytics are going to take a hit. It truly is a fascinating, chaotic intersection of tech, geopolitics, and celebrity ego. But I want to pass the question off to you guys now. Do you think the European Union is right to slap Google with $1 billion fine? Or is Washington actually right to step in and protect an American company from foreign regulators? And most importantly, are you as happy as I am to see that Google is now getting markled? I mean, anything that this couple touches really does turn to shit. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!
It was such a fraud.